The Front Row Back Row podcast is a show where two grad school buddies discuss physical therapy entrepreneurship. I helped guide a company to an 8-figure exit, and I'm now starting my own mobile company. Brian grew his mobile practice to 4 clinics, and he's now doing $1 million in revenue. Join us as we help you grow your own business. Hello and welcome to the Front Row Back Row podcast. Today we are talking about churn, specifically in mobile practices. For a lot of you listening, Brian started as a mobile practice and he has now built his company to 5 clinics doing about $2 million in revenue in the tri-state area. And I've had my career was 13 years in corporate PT, building up clinics and all that. But then I decided 2 years ago to go into a mobile cash pay clinic in Phoenix, Arizona. So on the pre-show, we were chatting a little bit, and Brian was like, "Dude, just hit record. Like, this is just a good topic." So, so what to set it up for anybody listening, I am in the hot months in Arizona. Right now, the temperature is in the triple digits, and it stays that way basically until like mid-October, right? And it gets the snowbirds start to come in around end of September, beginning of October when the nights start to cool down noticeably. So there's seasonality, right? And I was talking to Brian how I was very excited in August. I had a few people fly in for surgeries. Somebody knew somebody. They called. I basically got a bunch of referrals at the beginning of August. I thought, oh my God, I must be doing something amazing. I'm going to be gangbusters. I might need to hire somebody for the winter. And of course, Arizona comes around and slaps me in the face. So around Labor Day, everyone left. We have, people are thinking about starting back to PT. And of course, now we're going to start getting some of our winter visitors. So Brian was like, we got to talk about churn, man. So this is going to
Yeah.
be an episode about churn and about how, especially in mobile cash pay PT, the highs and the lows are pretty significant in your first few years.
Yeah. What to talk about with what basically what's going on here is you got a hole in the bucket. You know what I mean? If
Oh,
that's what
yeah.
happens. So when you're bringing in more leads and when essentially you're having a lot of churn, it means there's a hole in the bucket that's you're trying to fill with water, right?
Yep.
So there's an aspect that a lot of people, when you're working with somebody else, a lot of people I feel like strike out on their own in cash are kind of like, well, I always operated in a clinic that was overflowing the bucket, right?
Hmm.
Well, there's two sides to that. That means there's not a giant hole in the bottom of it either, right? So, um, in this particular case, I mean, I think the bigger thing, one is I would say this, like when you're someone who just started their practice, right? And the reason I think this is a good topic is I've heard Owen say this quite a bit. In fact, that's what we were joking with. I was like, I've heard he'll be like, "This was a good week," and then he'll be like, "This is a terrible week." It feels like that's happening all the time. And that's just, by the way, welcome to entrepreneurship. That's just how this works, right? For
Yep.
for those of you who don't. And for those of you who are thinking about a cash-based practice and want a steady income every single week, I got news for you. That's not how this works, right? There's going to
Mhm.
be booms and there's going to be lows. Like the difference between a salary is that a salary is a set salary where you're getting paid every 2 weeks. And that's the agreement you have with the employer that's paying you that. That is not, there's no agreement with anybody on that when you're, just starting your own business. So that's the first and foremost. Secondly, is I think there's two things. One is I think that churn when you're a mobile practice you kind of think about like, and again, I know you're going to throw out statistics, Owen, and things along those lines, but think about no shows and cancellation rates when you
Mhm.
think about the churn with cash-based PT. The idea is you obviously want to keep them as low as possible, but they happen, right?
Yep.
And so when you think about cancellation and no-show rates, the reality of how I look at it is you just got to factor in what you're factoring in into that number because ultimately those are both holes in the bucket. I think with a mobile practice, personally, there's less no-show and cancellations because you're
Mhm.
booking them, you're doing all that stuff, you're able to tighten the entire loop, so you're going to drive that down. However, what's driven up is your inability to streamline processes, so you can't streamline all the water into the bucket. So therefore, what happens is it's kind of like this one or two or three or four in, and then when you lose one or two, you're like, oh shit. So that's
Mhm.
the difference, I think, right? As a solo mobile practice, you just can't. This is why we talk about VAs and AI and things like that are going to be super helpful. It's a two-pronged problem. One is what are you doing to streamline the intake process to get those people in as quickly as possible? And two, what are you doing to reduce the churn that you're having? So, I mean, we can break that down more tactically because I think there is some piece of that for you for sure. So I know what your thoughts are there first.
So I'm using tech for the intake, right? So I have a few workflows set up on Go High Level to kind of say, okay, once somebody calls me, it's through Go High Level. So that way, they already create a contact just by them calling me. And then I have a workflow where I say, hey, my system's just going to send you a text message for your email and your address. Well, that's all through Go High Level. So once it sends that and then they send back that information, then that inputs it into my CRM in my system. And usually then later in the day, I'll book it in my EMR, especially if I'm on the road. So the intake technology has actually really helped me on that. And I also have a workflow where once I see them, I switch them from lead to customer, and then that triggers and Go High Level an email that says, maybe 3 or 4 hours later, hey, you're supposed to be sore after the first visit. If you have any issues, please call me. You can text me anytime. This is what you can expect from concierge service, blah, blah, blah. And then it also triggers a 6 month later email to offer them a referral bonus if they refer a friend or a discount or something. I forget which one it is. But it's something so it keeps everything in line from that reactivation all the way to like bring everything forward. I think the hardest part, the reason I'm getting the issue is just I don't have consistent marketing. And
Yes,
the two reasons I don't have consistent marketing is A, I'm used to a corporate PT lifestyle. My
for
kids are
sure.
both in, my kids are both in school. I have, house, car, everything that a salary paid for, and then we had a little bit extra. If I average my year out, right, I'm good. I pay for that, right? The problem is if you don't save or you want to spend down some debt or you want to do something when the money's good, well then you pay for it later in the year. So that kind of internal management makes me a little bit more stressed in the first year or two. Now, knowing a little bit more about my cycles and like when's busy, what's not, how my referrals are coming in, what's not, I'll be better next year, right? But right now is the pain of not having that last year, right? And the other side of that is some days the problem is I was servicing my business 3 weeks ago. I was not marketing. So all those patients go out and then I got to market because I have time and then I'll be busy again. So it's this kind of ever evolving cycle. And you get this with one
Yeah.
person clinics in the insurance world too. So that's where I think my churn's coming in is not so much the am I losing people I shouldn't be losing because I'm too busy. I think what it is, I don't have a stable marketing platform because I don't have the money and I don't
hmm
have the consistent time.
So Owen brought up the two pieces. He beat me to it. So it's good that the good news is I'm telling him stuff and he's listening. So that's the good news. So over
These
this
coaching
past
calls are
couple of
really
years,
working out for
these
me.
these are working out well. So the biggest aspect is, one of the things that I would tell people as is, and I'll get the name of the book to talk to people about with a finance. And I had a financial advisor give me this, and I thought it made a lot of sense. But he always talked about the thing that you can control is you can always try and find ways to make more money. That is something you can do. And I think in our profession, we can do that, but we do it with a lot of spending of our time, right? So that's always a piece of it. So the aspect is also we've had other podcasts, so I won't go into that because it's a whole other podcast episode about one-to-many models and blah blah blah, right?
Yep.
So let's not talk about that today. We'll talk about other pieces. So to Owen's point, he can fund more of the marketing messages and efforts if he makes more money, right? It's basically what I'm
Mhm.
hearing.
Yep.
I think there's two pieces to it, right? One is creating a really good offer that people will pay you more money up front. That helps front you money. So essentially you can pay for marketing. Because the nice thing about, like, say you do automated marketing on Facebook, say you do automated marketing and stuff like that, right? Outside. The aspect of that is if you pay for that marketing and do that, if you can find 1,500 bucks a month to pay for marketing, you don't need to have create tons of social media content. You don't need to create types of you're paying for eyeballs. So you're going to ultimately create the system and then be able to use it to get more people. So the idea is you want to put $1,500 in the machine, you want it to give you back $4,500. That's what we talked about. And then ultimately it helps you build the business over time. So
Yeah.
clearly that's not happening. That's one thing that you're struggling with. And I think that's a thing that a lot of businesses struggle with. And then what happens is they're afraid they get PTSD because I'm going to talk for Owen because I know this is part of his issue. He puts a little bit of money in, it doesn't work right away, and then he panics and he goes, fuck it, I'm turning it off. Right. And when that happens, that's also not good. The idea behind marketing is you're going to have to test and test and test and test. And then if you find the thing that hits, like we just tested an offer that worked really well, we signed up 10 fitness members for it, right? Those fitness members, if they stay for the year, that advertisement, so again, 10 fitness members pay about $3,000 a year. If they all stick for the year, that's $30,000.
Mhm.
So that just happened this week, right? We had a couple months, right, for fitness. In fact, we actually had a lot of churn that happened. It wasn't great. It's a combination of good timing, good marketing messages. I've been doing this shit for a while, so I kind of know when it's going to happen. So it landed at the right time. So again, if I told you $50 a day, $50 a day times 365, right? You're looking at $18,000. Well, guess what? I could have missed for the other 51 weeks, but I hit for that 1 week big. I made basically $20,000 on, or, $10,000 on that marketing alone if it got me nothing else. So that's
Yeah.
my point. A lot of it's the money in. The other piece for the messaging, because Owen had talked about the snowbird stuff, that to me means you got to find other marketing campaigns that are to people that aren't snowbirds. You got to
Mhm.
find people to partner with and do business with because I know you're big in the golf piece. So the
Yep.
golf is huge, obviously, because that's going to be the snowbird time. So you can really hit the golf time hard. And again, there's also a thing for timing for marketing, right? Right now, guess what? If I'm an ice cream shop and I'm in the Northeast, now's not the greatest time for me to be marketing ice cream shops, right? It probably is the end of winter, spring into summer. So when you think about the timing, that's the difference about messaging and why it's always good to freshen up new messaging as well. So
Mhm.
that to me is also important. So to Owen's point, a lot of what I would focus on here is marketing to get more patients. And specifically what I would do is what do I need to do to cover $1,500 per month consistently? Right? How many
Yeah.
pages do I need to do? I just reverse engineer that. And then again, my marketing efforts right now would be to all the people that aren't seasonal. Right? That's exactly what I would do. And then I would keep pushing in that direction. That's the tactical advice.
Well, and that's it, right? And that would all be lovely if I had extra cash.
Hmm. Yeah.
And the hardest part now is like it's all affiliate marketing and thankfully that good month gave me a little bit of a runway to be able to say like, all right, um I'm not going to sit here and be like, okay, well, maybe, maybe there's a shift I could pick up at a hospital. I know a lot of that's how I started out, right? Was taking a lot of shifts at the hospital or a clinic, outpatient clinic, something like that. Um, I told myself, I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I got to work on the business. So I've done a lot of affiliate marketing, right? You look at golf instructors, you look at physicians from my previous life. So like those are things that I'm doing now. And I think honestly, I agree with you. I think I need to be able to have a marketing budget that I can keep to, right? And it has to be somewhere
Yeah.
around that like $1,000 to $1,500 range per month, which I definitely think I can do. Um, and I think I just honestly, the hardest part is just you got to make sure that you stay on the button with saving your money and not, saying, oh, well, we could go on a vacation or oh, we could do this or that or whatever it is, that internal sort of financial stuff. But I agree with you that um, the marketing consistency is something where I really want to be. But I think a lot of mobile PTs, especially in the first few years, really struggle with this, is they know they need to be doing marketing. They
Yeah. Let me
just
let me
have to
let me
figure out to get there.
yeah, let me switch it a little bit because I also think it's one thing. And we talked about this I talked about this on one of the podcasts I was a guest on and I tell people that a lot of owners so here's the difference with marketing, okay. Owen just said something that I'm not sure if many people caught, and if they did, it's like you got to be good about your expenses so that you could spend money on marketing. For me, my biggest thing is all the first thing we talk about is spending if you're trying to get busier is spending money on marketing. And then the second thing you should be doing if you're trying to get busier is spend your money on marketing. And then the third thing you should do is if you're trying to get busy, you should spend your money on marketing, right? And
That
by
was
the
not
way,
a skip.
and let me say, and the fourth thing, just in case everybody missed it, is if you're trying to get busier, you should spend your money on fucking marketing, right? Like the idea behind it is that it is the most important thing to help you get busier. The number one problem is I need to create an offer that essentially people want to see, and then you pay the money on marketing so they can come see you, right? And again, Owen's doing the boots on the ground stuff and trying to build some of this stuff. Again, love it. It's great. It's very necessary because there is a cost to that too, right? You got to get printouts and things like that. So he's not
Yeah.
saying that. So obviously I'm busting his balls because I know I can't. But on the flip side, to what I would say to Owen is every dollar that you possibly can spare has to go to something because something's better than
Yeah.
nothing. And the
Yeah.
reality is if you can do that and spend money elsewhere, because I know you're also spending money on marketing groups and things like that, because
Yeah.
it's a challenge. So to me, I look at it as like a non-negotiable. Like it does not
Yeah.
go in my pocket. It literally doesn't even pass go, and I see it. It goes into the account, it goes back out to Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg.
Well, and
That's the aspect of it, right? So you got to just think about literally look at it this way. Where can I invest my money to go make more money babies?
yeah.
How can I go take this marketing and what can I do? And the people who are really fucking good at it make more money than they spend. That's the whole idea.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Well,
That's the
and
goal.
And I think it's important too to say, like, there is slow marketing that is cheaper, and there is fast marketing that is more expensive. So at
Yeah.
your size, you can do meta ads, like, give me the eye candy, man, get in here, fast offer, things like that, and you get that return. You can see those results quick. I've been spending, but I've been spending on slow marketing because I know I need to spend, but I also know like I can't, I'm not at that 1,500 a month of disposable, right? So BNI groups, right? Networking group, putting time and money into that, and then also SEO. So I've been able to put in some time for SEO. The biggest problem is that takes time to pay off, right? So those are part of the whole like, we started this podcast with me basically like complaining about, the bad week. But I think mentally, I got to keep in mind that I am spending. I'm just not spending on the right in your face kind of marketing. Like I press send, I press like run on a campaign in Meta, and then like 3 days later, I get a new patient.
Well, and it's an important aspect to talk about, right? What Owen was just saying was like, there's also an aspect of I want to run a campaign that I make money pretty quickly that I can see and charge enough money up front then fulfill the service that I can then continue to churn and get more people. And it takes more activity than people realize, right? It's a lot of
Yeah,
work.
yeah.
So he even keeps saying more, you keep saying more about like the size we're at, the size we're at. At the size we're at, still, if I'm not paying attention to it, it doesn't do it. It doesn't work.
Mhm.
So the reality is a lot of it is all the tactical stuff. By the way, for those who want to learn more of the tactical stuff, we teach it in physical growth. But never the
Yeah.
sense that there's the plug. But in terms of like and honestly, I would give everybody the secrets to the tactical stuff, but here's the kicker is there's so many different steps where it can get screwed up. And I'll try and run through it quickly actually, because why not while we're here.
Yeah, I was gonna
So
say, like, break it down
yeah.
because I'm interested because
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm eventually gonna be doing this stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I would
So
love to not make mistakes.
yeah. So let's talk about this first. All right. So here's a tactical run boost. And again, the other plug for physio growth is I'm gonna put this up in there, but one of the things is also like no different than when we're diagnosing a problem. If you're like, well, I did the paid marketing, Brian, and it didn't work, that means there was a problem with it somewhere along the lines I'm about to talk about. And so we can also diagnose it and figure out where it is. Essentially, it's pretty simple. How it works is I'm going to put money into an advertisement. Okay. That advertisement is going to have an offer. So that offer is the first thing we need to design. What is the offer that gets people excited to come bang down your doors? So the
Mhm.
first thing you do is you need to create good qualified leads. That's why you hear people banging on Instagram about the people that are going to come are good qualified leads and blah 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 and all this stuff. Listen, leads are all qualified in some capacity. Like there's advertising campaigns that are qualifying leads better than others and some that are less than others. There's high ticket offers, there's low ticket offers, there's all sorts of shit like that. But the answer really, when you hear people talk about that, essentially what they're saying is if I have a low ticket offer, and I don't even know what the threshold of low ticket and high ticket. Let's just
I think high ticket is in the thousands. Like I think it's some I've seen anything from
yeah,
like
all right.
5,000 to 10,000. Then
Yes.
there's like
So
medium ticket, which is like
yeah.
5,000 to 1,000.
Yeah, see, I bet it's even lower than that because like Netflix, right, is $15 a month, right? That's a
That's a
low
low
ticket
ticket.
offer. See
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like, so, I would probably put like $500 is probably like a high ticket offer
Medium.
to a certain way,
Yeah.
right? So it depends on the offer. So the offer of what we're trying to provide is here's the offer and here's what's stimulating. Now, the other part is the design of the offer. What's the mechanism of it? So here's the offer
Hmm.
I'm going to give you. You pay X, and this is what you get. So then, from that perspective, there's the fulfillment of that offer as well, right? So you also got
Hmm.
to make sure that what you're fulfilling in that offer makes sense. So again, to Owen's point, if he's like, I don't have money for advertising, that probably means the offer that he's advertising isn't making him enough money, which means that potentially what's happening is the fulfillment of what he's doing for that offer ultimately isn't making him enough money that he can pay for the marketing. You follow?
Yep. Yep.
So for instance, if it, like to break that down even more for those of who didn't follow me, if you're listening in the car and didn't hear it, essentially I'll make it simple. Say my offer is for $100, but to fulfill the service cost me $100. Well, guess what? I made no money. So therefore, I don't have money to put back into marketing to offer it again, right?
Hmm.
That's called brand marketing. Brand marketing. Now, this is where Owen is correct. As a company, we are much larger because it took us more time. Brand marketing is like what Nike does. They spend billions of dollars on budgets, and we spend lots of money on it too, because ultimately, over time, it just gets our name out there and our marketing and blah, 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 blah. So there is some of that. So the answer is really, again, like when you think about certain marketing budgets that go out there, that's why I always argue, like when people say, well, should we cut the marketing budget? I'm like, fuck no. Because the answer is it's at least doing that over time. So as long as you're making money at the business and you guys are all like, all right, we're making enough money and this is good, the answer is you should continue to keep it going, right?
Yeah.
Now, let's go to the next piece. So there's an offer design. So the offer design has to do a few things. It has to attract people that really want the service. When they come in, they pay enough for the service that you make money pretty quickly, that they're basically fronting you the money that you can then sell the offer more. That's the
Hmm.
key on the offer design. And also, by the way, make sure the offer doesn't suck. Like the product's not bad. Like, a good offer will drive more people to your gym or to your clinic or whatever. But if you're like, this is where like people who are like, I'm going to be a new grad cash PT. I got news for you. You probably aren't as good as like Owen is. So therefore, like your product's going to be crappier. That's just the reality of the scenario. So for those who are like, no, I'm the greatest PT ever, there's only one greatest PT ever. So that's the thing. But when it comes to
It's not
that
me or
aspect,
Ryan.
exactly, exactly. So let's think of it that way. So when it comes to the aspect of fulfillment, you just have to make sure that you're fulfilling it at the person's want, right? What that is. So anyway, that's the first part. Okay, now we've designed the offer. Now we can advertise the offer. Now, if we advertise the offer, are we going to use a video advertisement? Are we going to use a picture? Right? Those are basically the two major ones. But if we're going to use it, what is it going to look like? What are the colors? What are the design of it? What's the message that's going to sound like? Is it going to be more of a story-based thing or is it going to be more direct? Is it going to grab emotions? I'm a big believer in grabbing emotions, whether it's humor or making somebody cry or quite frankly causing some pain, like twisting the knife. Like are you trying to lose 15 pounds, but you're super frustrated? You've been trying for years. Like a little pain is good too, right? Is it something where you're trying
Are you worried
to,
your wife's going to leave you?
yeah, well,
Figure it out. PTs can fix
are you
that.
afraid of exercising because you've had back pain? Are you losing yards
For
on
a
your
long
golf
time.
swing? Is
Yeah.
you're using are you using losing yards on your golf swing every year that you play and you're not doing anything about it, or the things that you're trying to do aren't working? Are you hurt and so therefore you're always hurt so you can't do the things you love to do? By the way, that's a vague one. Be more specific. Does your back pain stop you from playing golf? And that's the issue right now, right? So there's so many different ways you can do that. You can test these provocative things. You could be humor. We've all seen funny ones, right? Where people are jumping around and doing silly shit on Instagram. Like you could do all that stuff. The idea is to get a good hook for those videos or something where it catches the eyeball for the first 4 or 5 seconds and then the person reads what they're looking to do. That's where the ad copy comes in, or they're listening to the advertisements, they want to know more about what's going on and click the little button below to learn, like I want to learn more and find out what's going on here. So that's
Okay.
the idea behind the advertisement and how that works. Now, after designing the advertisement, after you've worked your super, so again, you've had to design the offer. You've had to realize like all the things that are going into the advertisement. Once you put it in the advertisement, you put it on the internet and you get people to actually click. Now what happens? That's where stuff like what we talked about with Go High Level, and we do Go High Level management of physio growth, by the way. So we also build those kind of things. But the ultimate aspect of it is now it goes into a CRM and it needs to be engaged. That person now is raising their hand and saying, "Hey, I got XYZ issue that you're talking about, and you've got an offer that says it can fix it. I would like that help, please." Now you got to lead nurture that person. You got to talk to that person. You got to get them in and talk to them on either on the phone, or you got to talk to them in a video, or do you got to talk, whatever. You got to get in front of that person. So you got to chat with
Mhm.
them. Um, and a lot of that can be on a solo person. So the key with that is speed. You have to be talking to that person as quickly as possible. If you are not, on like every the statistics are crazy. You have an 800% more likelihood of of selling the person on the product if you can actually get in front of them within the first 5 minutes of them raising their hand. Think about all the work you did to get the gumption for them to click on that ad. Think about any time you've ever bought anything on the internet, right? If I buy something on the internet and something goes wrong, I'm kind of like, I'll just get back to it later. And so now you've just created all this time, and then what it does it you fall off the climax of what your want for that product is now, right? For those of us who have done something where they've been online and bought something online, right? Or my favorite one is like you're out, if you're kind of drunk and you are online and you're like, let me go buy something, blah blah blah, and you're like inhibited, and then you're like, I bought the like I always laugh about buying these
Oh, I bought
sneakers
this
that
T-shirt of George
yeah.
Washington on an eagle doing a military press.
Exactly. Or I bought
Darn
a bunch of
it!
I bought a pair of sneakers that like I thought like I just remember having a little bit of wine and they were like black with and I thought they were black with like a purple on the back and I was like those were sweet and then they came and they were like hot pink on the back and I was like damn. Well what happened was they got like now you've lowered your inhibition a little bit. So even if you're
So get
not
our patients drunk is what you're
there you
saying.
go. So there yes
High
exactly.
quality physical therapy advice from
Exactly.
this podcast.
They'll probably not a bad offer to be honest. In terms of the aspect of where we're going with this. Now, say you get the person in there, right? The idea is to keep them moving through the line. Again, we've talked about the Wolf of Wall Street and we've talked about Jordan Belfort's straight line method. For those of you who want to learn more about it because it's really, really effective. The straight line method, just keep them moving in the straight line. You got them with the offer. You got them on the you got them with the lead. Now they're in there. You got to contact them. You got to get them in a sales meeting, and now you got to keep them moving to the point where they give you money. All right. So now we've contacted them. We've scheduled them to meet with us, either in person or on phone. By the way, this part fucks so many people up. It's crazy. The lead nurture, especially for someone like you, Owen, in
Uh-huh.
the and anybody who's a mobile cast PT, this is tough because how do you create a sales meeting, guys? You got to go to their house. Well, that's a hard one. Now, you got to structure it very similar to how, guess who also does this? Plumbers, electricians, contractors, an estimate. So if that's where the discovery visit comes in. That's why it's an effective thing that you've seen all over the internet for physical therapists.
Mhm.
I can come and do a discovery visit. And I'm going to come to your home and talk to you. But now you got to be prepared to have free time that you're going to donate to going to someone's home.
Yep.
Right. So you just got to be prepared for that. But this is what screws a lot. This is what makes mobile practice a lot harder long term. Is I got to go to people's homes to do it, or I'll give you a free discovery video call where you can talk like this. That's awesome. But again, it's time is harder. But nevertheless,
Yep.
that's the next step. So you set up this, and that what that is that's a sales meeting. It's the last step. From the sales aspect, now what you have to do is you have to close this thing. And it's not a metaphorical thing of like, whoa, they're coming in the future, blah, 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 whatever. No, it's I want them to give me dollars. So I want them to give me money. And quite frankly, enough money that guess what? I can start this whole process back over again, which means I can take the money and this is where PTs can actually win big and discounting your services. Like I know Owens charges about 175 bucks an hour, but if you say, hey, I'll give you 10% off or 15% off or 20% off. I used to give 20% off and that was huge.
Mm.
20% off if you buy 10, if you buy a 10 pack.
I'm at
Guess
10%
what?
for 10, yeah.
Right? So even 20%, I used to give 20%, everybody did 20%. Well, guess what that did? All right, 175 discounted. Now all of a sudden that 1200, 1500, I'm not gonna do the math while we're talking about it.
Yeah, it's like
But that money,
160. Yeah,
yep. But so
160 to
so now it's
150,
what
yeah.
so now it's like 1500 to $1600. Well, guess what? I just covered the whole mechanism again.
Mhm.
And now I can get them in. And that's how the whole process works, guys. Like that.
Well,
And then again, I think for a lot of people who are like, wow, that sounds kind of complicated and time consuming and difficult. Yeah,
mhm.
it is.
Yeah.
It is. Right. And the thing is, for those of you who think this shit's easy, it's not. It's hard. And it
Yeah.
is. And so I think a lot of people I mean, like Owen's gonna be fine. The reason why Owen's gonna be fine is because Owen's got me, and Owen, and from a standpoint of
Okay.
as
All
this is
right.
all,
All right. All right.
and
All
so
right.
there. But at the same time, Owen and I've also talked about so you temper expectations. I think there are a lot of PTs that get into this blindly,
Mhm.
thinking, "Oh, it's so easy." but then you explain this whole process, and Owen understands this whole process, right? And you're like,
Yeah.
holy fuck, this is hard. And that's the
Well,
challenge.
Well, and that's the thing, and I've even found, obviously I was talking about like the mentorship ladder, right?
Yeah,
And you're high up on that mentorship ladder, right?
yeah,
I don't think I want to be a CEO of like Athletico, so I'll put that phone number back in my
yeah,
pocket. But you're the top rung of that, right? But I still call, the mobile PT who I used to work with, who's got 3 years more, 2 or 3 years more in the business, but he's in the local market. And that's a valuable phone call for me. So I think that like as people are going through what I started this conversation with of like, man, there's churn in this, and then we kind of identified that it's, the marketing is where we need to kind of develop a system. Understand that a lot of this is your mentality, right? A lot of
for
this is
sure.
like, I could have this morning just been sitting there and saying, okay, well, I don't have a call until 10:30 because I don't have an 8 o'clock or a 9 o'clock patient. And, this, I guess I'll play video games and maybe like clean the house and all that. But no, I was like, okay, how am I going to figure out an AI? How am I going to train my AI model to be better at producing a social media content? How can I get my workflow for YouTube videos so
Yeah,
that I can create them more efficiently? And then I went into the analytics and figured out, and I went down that rabbit hole. But I also texted two doctors, right?
yeah,
So, those types of things, now just supplement or put in place of that. I tweaked my ad campaign. I went
yeah.
into Meta Ads Manager and figured out what my hook rate was. I retooled my offers. I mean, Brian, that's something we could talk about in another podcast. But I did a price anchor offer of 15 grand for the golf services. So, um, things like that where you should be using that time, but you can only do it if you're got that positive attitude.
And the thing is, I think that's also really good. Kind of, and we can talk about this, like creating a sense of urgency is a really good advertisement piece. And so
Yeah.
many people are like, well, like Owen will say, well, how many? But I could take on a bunch of people. I don't have, listen, Owen, if I said I'm going to give you 30 more people this week that you guys see twice a week, could you see them all?
30 more people, 60 visits? No.
So there you go. So that
Don't have the
means
time.
there's a ceiling. There's a ceiling,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's why you see 14 spots available, 12 spots available, 5 spots available. Like create some
Yeah.
sense of urgency.
If I don't want to work Saturdays and I want to be around for like kids soccer, I think I did the math on it. It's 26 is the busiest I can be.
Yeah. So think about it.
Visits, not
And how many
patients.
and again, if Owen's got 10 visits this week, that means 5 visits. That means he can only really take on 7 new clients.
Yeah.
So literally imagine an advertisement could be I've worked, and again, I've got more into the emotional side of it, but say he's like, I've worked with the frustrated golfer or the frustrated adult who wants to keep playing golf into their 60s and 70s and ultimately just can't stay on the course because they're always hurt. And they move to Arizona because they want to be here. If that's you and you want to talk to those people, I help these people stay and have the great golf game for the rest of their lives. I can only take 7 new clients because I'm just one guy, but I would love to help you. If you're interested, just click this link below. See how
Yeah.
emotionally I grab people where they're like, "Oh, nice." Like so again, I think the bigger thing though for you is I would also focus on some marketing that is specifically maybe not outside the golf niche, but more specifically on um people who are there all the time. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like people who are there on a regular basis. So identifying kind of what those people are, and what kind of repetitive issues. And and the advantage you have is you've been in the market, so you're going to know who those
Yeah.
people are. You know,
Yeah.
so
And that's the nice thing that I have that maybe somebody listening to this doesn't is that like I have a lot of past patient relationships and physician relationships that the golf thing, I've been known to treat that, but I never advertise myself as that. So it's not like I'm sitting here and saying like the only thing I ever see is golfers and I'll turn anyone away.
yeah,
I mean, the business that I've built in the last 2 years has basically been on the 40 to 60-year-old active adult, their kids, and then their mom and dad, right?
yeah,
So your typical kind of general pop uh, place.
yeah.
But I also have the background of like, oh yeah, I remember when you were in, Athletico or three, whatever it is. Whereas somebody may not if they've only been at one place for a few years.
Yeah, I think, yeah, and I think that's what you just got to identify. And I'm trying to think, it's hard because I'm trying to think of a way from a seasonality perspective because I know you said that on a regular basis, but our business just isn't like that. We
Yeah,
do have some snowbirds, I suppose, but like it doesn't affect our business. Like, you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
for us, for us, what affects our business is in August, a lot of people go away in this area just because they have
yeah.
money and they leave. And that's just part of the August, right? And
Well,
then
and
now
that's
school's back in, and
that's the
that's just
thing
part
is
of it.
I don't
Yeah.
think my seasonality is because of the golf season. I think my seasonality is because of the
Yeah.
money
Heat.
season in Arizona.
Yeah.
Like, because if
Yeah.
you have the money to afford cash PT, because we got seasonality like this in the retirement community clinics when we were taking insurance in my old companies, but we didn't in the city, right? In the
Yeah.
city, it was pretty stable. So like I think my issue is because I'm a cash PT. And because
Yeah.
if I have the money to spend on PT, I also have the money to get an Airbnb for 3 months in San Diego,
Yeah.
right? So that's I think the bigger issue is not the golf niche, it's the like cash niche, I
Yeah,
guess.
for sure. And then this is what we've talked about is like when people say like when people have asked me like, oh, that's weird. You went to cash PT and then you went back to insurance. Well, and I'm like, here's the stability aspect of it. You know what I mean?
Well, and the thing
So
is
it's
too,
huge
and
too.
I've heard of people where they have, maybe 20 PTs in their entire company, and I don't know how they split it out clinic wise, but you could make a crap ton of money just doing that if your goal is not to sell. If you just
Yeah,
want 20, I'm not going to ask you to tell me exactly what your strategic plans are, but like I have to imagine at your size, you very much could say, eh, I'm just going to make like a few 100,000 a year and be completely fine. Right now, when it comes to selling time, that's going to suck because like
exactly.
you can't reinvest that into your business. But at the same time, like there's options. So I always kind of laugh, yeah, to your point when people say like, "Oh, cash pay, why would you ever go to insurance?" And I'm like, well, dummy, that's literally the only way you can have any reliable employees that build your business on a one to
Yes,
two relationship. I mean, the worst case scenario is that an employee is a 1 to 2 investment. It's a double your money investment, right?
exactly.
So, like, why wouldn't I want the thing that allows me to do that? But anyway, that's
Especially
a new podcast. We've talked about like eight different
exact.
podcasts today.
Exactly. But no, it's true. It's true. I think in general, but no, I agree. I agree completely. I think, and again, we've talked a lot about that past, but that's how I would approach it. I would approach it with, we started with we're going to decrease churn in the cash, like the mobile cash PT world, and the answer is get more patients. That's what you can
Yeah,
focus on. For those who are wondering on the book, I was going to look it up if anybody's ever interested because to kind of give you a little context as to why I read this book was I was somebody who was saying, oh, and like, and I just hear it now when I was like, I'm always stressing out about money, blah, blah, if we're going to have enough and what should I do and how can I focus? And my financial advisor gave me this book and he said, listen, he was like, don't worry on expenses. There's three expenses again. Here's, I guess, and by the way, we should put this like, what's the FINRA? Oh, and you got the liability stuff on people can
oh,
still
yeah.
screw this all up.
We are not financial advisors.
Thank you.
That
Thank you.
we are promoting somebody else's work. You can sue them.
Exactly. So basically, what they talked about was you're all going to be somewhat fine in some capacity if you do, like from an expense perspective, if you get these three things correct. One, don't buy cars you can't afford. Two, don't buy a house you can't afford, which banks kind of help you with that. But then again, don't do that. And three, and this is where me and Owen screwed up to a degree, don't go to a college that you can't pay off in a regular like amount of time. Those are the only three things that can screw you up. Everything
Yeah,
else is pretty um, relaxed in that way. But No Worries by Jared Dillon was the book that I really liked. It's a book that basically just talks about focus on how you can make more money. And eventually, if you don't screw those other three things up, credit cards are the other one thing probably.
yeah.
But as long as you don't screw those three things up, then you should be fine. So anyway,
Well, and that's it. And
that's
outside of
got
doctors, lawyers, and executives, most of the people who make that kind of FU money are entrepreneurs. And
yeah,
they did not do it by like, you know, I don't know, getting the store brand rice, to make
yeah,
their money. What they did is they figured out something and figured out a way to make a money machine. So hopefully you
exactly.
could do and make that money machine too.
Yeah, exactly. And if you want help doing it, hire us at Physio Growth. That'll be helpful too.
Yeah. If you made
Well,
it this long, if you made it this long in our brain dump podcast, we love you.
exactly,
You need to spend more
exactly,
time with us.
exactly,
All right,
exactly.
physio-growth.com. We are out, my friend.
See you, man.
See ya.